Welcome to the Crystal Crawford Show. I'm Crystal Crawford, and I invite you to a deep exploration of the tools of access consciousness and a totally different way of being.
Well, hi. Welcome again to the show. Welcome to today's episode where we're going to be diving into tools for the fear of putting yourself out there. I'm Crystal. If I haven't met you before, I'm an Access Consciousness certified facilitator, and I've been playing with these tools for the last 10 years. And so when people ask me what I do, I tell them I do this weird thing called Access. Check it out. And if you're one of those new people, you can go to infinitebeingschool.com and get into a new weekly taster class that I have on these tools. And for those of you guys listening, hi, and watching, nice to see you. Tell me where you're watching from. Send me a photo. This is a lead-in to our next taster class, which is called Peeking Out of the Closet. And when I was really researching what I could talk about that would address why we don't put ourselves out in the world, this is what came up. I was like, what would I be Googling if I wanted to start something or I had a business and I wasn't feeling confident, or every time I would go into trying to create stuff, I went into my head and I got all paralyzed and panicked. What would I be Googling for help for? So I Googled like being scared. What did I Google? Something about being scared doing social media. Because really, when we look at putting ourselves out there, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but essentially it involves us putting ourselves and what we think out in front of people in some way. And for the most part, those of us who have a business, that's required, right? Like if you have a good idea and you want to proliferate it in the world, people have to know about it. So how are people going to know about it? Well, you got to put yourself out there. So what are some of the tools that you can use when you have stuff come up? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Let me start with a quick story. When I've never known how to create any business I've ever created. The only thing I've ever had is a willingness to get in the mud and the knowledge that I was not going to be able to work for anyone else. And the third piece, which is that if anybody was going to pay me for what I did, I had to get it in front of them. My very first, no, this is not true. This wasn't the very first. One of the many attempts or businesses actually that I did create, I've created a few businesses, was a landscape design business. I started building a business doing landscape design for people before I even graduated because I didn't want to wait. And as I was finishing up my courses, I started looking at all the different ways I could put myself in front of people. And I looked at, flyers in the mail and going door to door and knocking on people. I'm like, how am I going to let people know that I do landscape design? I'm one chick in my basement at the time. Like, am I going to go knocking on doors? Do I need a business card? And then I started asking myself a different question. Like, who would I need to get in front of? Like, who's already got the connections with the people that I can go get in front of that then could connect me to the people? And so out of that, I came up with the information comes in when you ask a question, right? So this is actually probably tool number one is, first of all, clear. Okay, there's so many things. So ask a question. I'll get into the very specific tools. Just hang in there till midway. So I asked a question, where are the people that know the people? And so I went and put myself out there as a new landscape designer in a landscape supply company. And these guys were coming in contact with contractors all the time. The contractors always needed a landscape designer because they didn't typically keep one on staff. And the supply place was where they would go to get their stuff. So I was like, where's the most obvious dominant place that the people that know the people go? So there are, the reason I tell this story is because there are multiple ways to put yourself out there. It's not just social media. And in this day and age, if you have a business or you have an idea that you're going to eventually call a business, it is one of those things that is pretty unavoidable. And if you can get great at putting yourself out there, your business can really thrive. So let's talk now then about what comes up when you go to do that. One of the first things that comes up, obviously, is fear. And we have to talk about fear because no matter whether or not you're talking about putting yourself out there or having a conversation you don't want to have or talking about entities in the spirit world, fear is 100% of the time, 100% of the time, a distractor implant. It is not real. It is literally there to distract you. And I know that for some of you that are new, this could be maybe I lose you at that point. Maybe you're like, no, but it feels so real. I know it's intense. But the thing is that we've been taught that fear and excitement we've basically misidentified excitement as fear. Now, listen, I've been in some situations where I would definitely say to you, even now, that I was terrified. But that would be what's on the surface. That would be me talking about what's on the surface. Every time I've looked under, if you look under terrified, there is always an ability there. There's always a power. I have never looked under fear and not found power. So if it wasn't called fear, what would it be? That might be a great question to start to ask yourself. If this wasn't fear, what would it be? And I've heard people say, and some people in Access say, fear and excitement are basically physiologically the same. So you could say, is this fear or excitement? The thing that's really helped me is this fear, or am I more potent here than I've wanted to choose? That energy that you call fear is just energy. And the moment you label it something is the moment you're into trouble and you're distracted. And this is the thing about the distractor implants. And if you are curious about the distractor implants, man, go to my YouTube channel and just search. You can probably search distractors. But there was a whole series that I did because there's 24 of these. And literally in each of these things, put your attention on something you can't handle. Can you handle fear? Like if you go into fear and you're like, I'm afraid I can't do it, then you can't. Like, your point of view creates your reality. You literally can't. So going into it doesn't change it. Trying to figure out why you're afraid doesn't change it. Trying to fix fear doesn't change it. Literally the only thing that changes fear is to acknowledge that you're distracted by it and to choose. And that's what changes fear. So it's pretty essential that you recognize fear for what it is. It's not a feeling. It's not real. It's a sensation that you're calling fear to use to stop yourself, and it's there to distract you. What's underneath it, and what can you choose from now? Having said that, let's talk about this a little bit more. When you go, one of the things that I am cultivating and growing in the world as a choosable reality is the reality that you are an infinite being. Now, I learn more about this all the friggin' time. I got another piece of it today. So this is an ongoing, ever-giving possibility. Now, here's why I bring that up. As an infinite being, would there be anything that you couldn't choose or do? Now, as a finite being, a limited being, that's what finite means. Finite means there's a limited number of things. Maybe if there's a finite number of water bottles, there's only 2 or 3. If there's a finite amount of money in the world, we have to conserve resources. If there's a finite amount of oxygen in the air, we have to conserve. So finite is the thing we do to tell ourselves that there's not enough. Now, for the most part, we're functioning as if we are not enough, as if you are not enough. And I've done this so many times in my life. I recover more of me all the time. There was somewhere I was going with this, though, with fear. As an infinite being, are you unaware or are you aware? Now, if you're not sure if you are aware or fucked up, I'm going to give you a tool to check it out, okay? When I first found Access Consciousness, I wasn't sure. Actually, that's not true. When I first found Access, I was 100% sure I was fucked up. Like 100%. I'm fucked up. I know it. I just want tools to be happy and have good relationships. That's all I was asking for. So that may be where you're at, and that's okay. What I would invite you to do is to check that out and see if it's actually true. And one way you can do that is, and the question I started with is, are you aware or are you fucked up? Now, this does relate to putting yourself out there, so give me a second. The way you check that out is you ask every single thing in your world, are you mine? I am going to tell you right now, 10 years into this, I need to go use this tool for 3 days. I have been lazy with this question. I am just assuming everything that comes into my world is mine. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Still not wrong if you know about this tool and haven't been using it. But this is the way that you start to see, like, is this actually mine? Is this my point of view? Is this my heaviness? Is this my feeling? Do I need to do something with this? Is this even mine? Who does this belong to is the tool. And you do that for 3 full days. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion, ask it something. Ask it something. So the reason I say that is because when you go to doing something that feels a little crazy, that's a little out of the box, you do know that like 0.01% of the population contributes to the 99.9% of the population. So you already looking at putting yourself out there makes you really different. So when you go to do that, whether you're going into a new place to meet a business owner and tell them you do bars, or you are getting on StreamYard to do a conversation, or you are getting on TikTok to do a short, whatever it is that you are getting ready to do, the thing that occurs is you get an instantaneous download of information. Now, if you don't know that that occurs for you, and it does, then you could feel even more fucked up when you go to do the thing that you set out to do. You open up that video camera and all of a sudden you get rushed with all this information. Now, the very first place most of us go with that is we feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, or paralyzed, or I can't. But that's where you go when you don't know what just occurred. So that, and just so you know, like every single time you go to contribute or you go to do a class or anything that's you contributing and receiving from other people, that occurs. So you get this instantaneous download. So again, if you don't know that's happening, you can think things about that. And you could go to conclusions about that rather than recognizing, oh my God, I just got so much information. So you have to start to inform yourself and educate yourself on, I'm an aware being, and as soon as I tap in, I get the information. Whew. Now what? Okay, so now you're getting all this information. Now what happens for a lot of people is their mind goes blank, right? Anybody ever had that where you go to speak and you can't find anything in your head? That's a good thing. Why? Because your head is actually the least of your abilities. And you're like, yeah, but I can't find any words. Okay, I have a few more tools for you. Number one to know about all of this is that you are building a new muscle. And I don't think we acknowledge this enough. Honestly, I think I forget about it a lot, like how many muscles we actually need to build to be functional, impactful beings on the planet. I think I forget. I'm like, well, I should just know how to do this. But that's not actually true. You know, when I was first starting to do videos, this was back in probably 2015. And I was living in Vancouver, Canada at the time. And again, I had created myself into a corner and was down to my last $500 in credit. And so it was create or die, because I'd even gone outside the house and tried to get a job even. I'd put out a few applications, and every restaurant, and I was going for the thing that I knew. Like, here's the thing I know how to do. Do you want me? Nobody wanted me. I was older. In Vancouver, they were hiring young, pretty thin things, and I was an older, pretty not as thin thing. And so I did it a few times, and I was like, you know what? This is not the thing. Me trying to get a job to solve my money problem is not the thing. So I recognized that it was going to be create or die. So it was around that time that I faced my uncomfort with putting myself out there. I didn't feel ready. I definitely didn't have, I didn't feel ready on any level, right? I wasn't making money. I wasn't an expert. I was a certified facilitator, but I was broke as shit. I was in a new relationship that wasn't really working. Like, kind of every single thing that would make a person feel like they had their shit together, I didn't have. So I couldn't rely on any of those sensations to create from. And I think a lot of us go looking for those when we're looking at putting ourselves out there. Like, we want to feel comfortable, like we're in an armchair and with our best friends and laughing, you know. It's never comfortable, just so you know. First thing you have to be willing to give up is comfort. You might not be as extreme as me, but in truth, like, that really is the first thing. So I was just like going to do it. And so I just did. And for me, I think I popped onto a Facebook Live or two, something, and then created some money. I've told that story before. But then I kept showing up on video. And if you go back and look at my videos from 2015, I think I have a playlist on YouTube. You can notice the difference between then and now. Now I speak with a lot of authority. I speak with a lot of clarity. I come on regularly. I have a pretty put together-ish background most of the time. I've usually got makeup on. None of which is required, but it's changed, right? There's a level of expertise that I've achieved with speaking and sharing and picking a topic and all of that I didn't have in the beginning. But if you go back and watch those original videos, they're still great. And I will notice things like my mouth would get funny because I would get nervous. Like, I would open the camera, and this was me trying to work my way into what it is I wanted to say. When I knew I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what I wanted to say, I would just turn on my video. I think I have my phone here. I would literally just open the video app, I would turn it on, and I would start talking. And I would delete probably 8 to 10 to 20 of them, because I would do the thing and I'd be like, oh, that's terrible, delete. I would do the thing, and then I would walk around the house and find different light, and so I was always holding it. But mostly because I was workshopping what the fuck I wanted to say and the energy that I wanted to deliver it with, and I really, really wanted it to be true and not be one of those videos where you like scroll past because that person is being weird. You know how you just like, sometimes certain people are talking, you're like, ugh, I didn't want that. So, but I would start. And this was the thing I think that changed everything for me, was my willingness and probably desperation at that time to just start. And that was the process I went through. So for a while I didn't go live because I was like, if I go live, my mouth would do funny things. I would get really uncomfortable, and then my mouth would get really tight like this. I can't even repeat it now. So I had to practice some things. So the first thing I practiced was just starting. Okay, that really probably is one of your best tools, is literally just open it and just start talking. One of the things that happens when you do that is you break the seal on what it is that you know about this that you don't know how to get out. And you also kind of will allow out all of the mumbo jumbo that's in there too, right? Like, I just wanted to pop on the video and tell you guys I don't want to take up too much of your time, all the filler stuff, right? You know, I was thinking that possibly that maybe that all the filler, right? So it kind of gets all that out. And then you go back and watch it, and you'll hear whether or not you would pay attention to that. Like, is this something that I would keep watching, or did I lose myself in the first 3 seconds? And then do it again, right? And this time eliminate some filler and go, oh, and then notice if you feel uncomfortable or if your body's weird, or you're like, oh, then move around the house. And then like, you want to start to practice delivering what it is that you know. This is huge, okay? And I am using social media for the most part as where you will put yourself out there, but the same is really true of going in and speaking to people. If you have a physical business or a bars business, bodywork business, you got to get that in front of people. So you have to practice opening your mouth, right? And one of the first things I did with that, and I'm building a new bars business down here in Georgia, is just talking about that I'm in business and then letting people ask me what my business is, and I'm practicing. I do this weird thing called access consciousness, and then I let them ask for more or let it drop. If they let it drop, they're not interested, they're not my people. If they ask for more, then I tell them more, then I say more, and then we look for a time to do something further. But it's the same thing. It's the practice of opening my mouth. If I never mentioned I had a business, nobody would ask me about it. So I find ways to slip in the business word and allow them to ask me about it if they choose. So it's the same practice. It's practicing. So then once you've kind of broken the seal with blah, 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 and you kind of got that, there's a couple other tools that you can start to, because you really do want to break the seal first. It's like, break the seal. That's the most important thing. Honestly, imperfect is better than not at all. In fact, imperfect is perfect. That's actually what you want. But like, I think it's done is better than perfect. I've heard a lot of people say that. So, but the second thing you can do, and this is what I started playing with as I got more comfortable with the seal broken, right? I'm like, okay, I broke the seal. I'm doing videos now. Now what can I add to this? Is literally pulling up all the energy up from the earth through your body, lowering all your barriers, pulling energy through the camera lens, and receiving all that information that people deliver to you while they're watching you now and in the future. And that's when videos started getting really easy for me. For the most part, with these shows now, for example, I don't do a lot of preparation. There have been a few shows here and there where I'm like, I want to show the steps, or I have a list, and I've played with that. But you'll notice that I always return to picking a topic and just freestyling it. Why is that? Because it's easier. Because I can literally pull the energy from your world and my world, and there's this cooperative, energetic element that goes on that allows things to fall out of my mouth. And that's a lot of why I record these live as well, because your presence, whether or not you're saying anything or commenting anything, is informing what shows up. There's so many times I will get off of a video or a show like this where I get feedback from somebody like, oh my God, that was great. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the feedback, because I didn't feel like I was saying anything. Because it's really like in the moment flow, pulling from your world, letting it come through mine, and going, what's next with this? What do I want to say that's next about this? Okay? So as with anything, the key is just to start. And trust me, your beginning stuff, no matter what it is, whether it's a new skill or a new series of videos, or you putting yourself out there for the first time, is going to be awful. It's going to be awful and nobody's going to see it. And that's fine. And really where that stuff's going to be super valuable is later, when people are looking back at your original stuff and then seeing you now and then going, whoa, you've come a long way. But also it's going to start to build a few things in the world. Of course, it builds the confidence in the algorithms of the social media platforms. Of course, it does do that, by the way. Algorithms support you if you're willing to create. But it also, it also begins to develop visibility, so people actually know you exist, and it develops confidence in you, that you are a stable element in the world that they can count on and go to for change and choice and resources and everything. So and a third thing that it creates is in your world of you being able to trust yourself that you're going to show up. And I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. I am constantly, I think the nature of my work, the nature of being a consciousness facilitator and a consciousness enthusiast and a consciousness addict, is that I am constantly expanding into more of me, into more of what's possible for me, into more of what's available to me. As we all expand, I expand. So I'm a part of all of that. And so a natural side effect of that is losing reference points pretty continually. And also I choose a lot in my life. So I live a very dynamic existence. And whereas some people don't. Some people have a very stable existence, right? Stable family, stable home, stable everything. Like my mother hasn't left her house in 30 years. I talked to her for the first time last weekend. She called, and she's like, oh, you're in the United States now? We don't talk that often. I said, yes, I've moved to Georgia. She's like, and she sounded very alarmed. She said, well, why? And I said, I just changed my mind. We were there for 2 years and it wasn't really working the way that I wanted it to. And so I changed my mind. And I said, is that okay? And she said, well, I mean, yeah, you just changed your mind. I said, yeah. But it was so far out of her reality because she's been in the same place doing the same thing and basically, in her words, just sitting around waiting to die. So, there's a spectrum. I would say she's on one end of the extreme spectrum and I might be on the other end and you are where you are. But I say that to iterate that the more dynamic your living is, the more you are going to have to choose to put yourself out there repeatedly. The more you have to get used to it being pretty uncomfortable, kind of no matter how much you've done it. You're going to notice in the business, if you pay attention, that we're really cultivating Infinite Being School in a really different way. I've started these free taster classes, and you can go here to get into the next one. We're doing them Wednesdays now at 3 p.m. Eastern. They're free if you're live. If you miss the live class, or you work during that time, or you're in a weird time zone and you can't make it live, you can still get the replay. The replays are going to live in Infinite Being School Prime. Prime is going to be $14.99 a month for the replays forever. So as long as you're a member, you're going to be a part of an ever-growing body of work, just like Netflix. So we're building, right? We're building our own consciousness Netflix. It's been a little clunky. The communication's been a little clunky. I've been really aware of it and receiving from it and making choices to institute it, but it's been a little clunky. So when things are clunky and they don't naturally, I don't get the feedback that I prefer that tells me something's a good idea, like people buying it, for example, then I tend to go a little insecure. And I go into some doubt and I go into some fear, but consciousness is a gift because I can recognize that I go into that. And that's going to happen, that does occur for me at every big shift. I start navigating it and choosing things, and then I don't get the response that I want, and I don't get necessarily the feedback that I think I should get. And I think that's what our biggest fear is with putting ourselves out there, that we're going to do it and nothing's going to happen, or people are going to criticize us. And the thing is, all of that happens. All of that occurs. Okay? And in the beginning of anything, whether it's at the very beginning of your career or in the fucking middle when you're reinventing yourself, many times there's crickets. And so if you need that reactive response and you don't get it, then you could tend to quit. And I have some of that. Thank God I'm surrounded by strong, able, wise, aware people. I will expose my vulnerability, I will tell them, and they will be like, no, we got this. We keep going. And I'm like, yes. So that's the gift too of surrounding yourself with people that have your back, is you don't have to do this alone. And I think it's really worth kind of wrapping up with that. Why do you want to put yourself out there? I know for me, I'm creating a world where the choice for being an infinite being with infinite choices and infinite possibilities is more tangible, is something that doesn't seem so conceptual, that actually is something people can choose. I don't know how long that's going to take to institute that, actualize that in the world. I know that I am that. I'm the living embodiment of that. I know that some other people are choosing it. I know that the more I'm willing to put it out there and invite you and invite others, and you invite your friends, I know that it becomes more and more available all the time. And I know that I can continue talking about it and putting it out there and being it and choosing it and living it. And that's what I have control over. Those are the choices I have. So what are the choices you have to institute what you are aware of? And that's really what we're talking about with this conversation, is actualizing your reality in the world. Not even just growing your social media presence, because that's a side effect of putting what you are aware of into the world. Your social media presence grows because people find you and they're like, what is that magician? What is that weirdo? I thought I was the only one. Oh my God, there's another one. Let me binge her stuff, right? That's the effect of it. But really, it's the gift is you going, I'm aware of this, and I'm aware of this, and what if you tried this? And I get we can create something I haven't seen before, so let's go here, and I'm going to invite you over here. And that's what's really true. That's the why. So what gift are you that you can start to play with and expose to the world, and really more expose to yourself, because in the beginning the world won't know you're doing it. But from your point of view, doing your first video or whatever will feel a way, but what would it take to be willing to start? And begin to institute what you are aware of and what you know should exist in the world, and the difference that your voice is. I'm here for that. So sign up here for the taster on Wednesday. If you miss it, if you're watching this in the future, just go to Infinite Being School Prime. Sign up for $15 a month and you can have that replay and all the others for as long as you're a member. And otherwise, I will see you guys on the next show. Bye for now.